right. I can't hear the music, but it's playing in the background. Anyway, hello, sports fans. This is your guy, the guru of sports. And today I'm here with two very, very special guests. The first guest I want to introduce is the chief editor and CEO. Oh, I forgot to do the thing. Hello, sports fans. I know. I'm like really silly. The editor and chief editor, CEO, and he's the main man behind Cali Sports News, Mr. Jeff Duarte. He is I look up to him. I work for him, and I handle the basketball and the football side, but he's the chief editor. I have to answer to him. Mr. Jeff Duarte, want to say hi?
Hey, Mac, thanks for having me on, brother.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Now, the second guest is probably the best hockey writer in America. Believe me, I think she is really, really awesome. She does a really good job. She is actually the hockey editor, senior editor for Cali Sports News, Miss Emily Redenbach. Really, really appreciate you coming on as well.
You can keep flattering me with praise. This is why I do it.
Oh, believe me, I'll tell you guys out there, you've got to read her stuff. It's awesome. I
appreciate it.
Believe me, I do an okay job, but you do an exceptionally well job. And I just say that because, like I said, I have a lot of respect for the people in our business. But like I said, if you had to, you can do anything. And basically, I really appreciate you being on with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You're welcome. All right. Now, if you don't know, we actually tried to do this yesterday. Now, we had some technical difficulties, but I'm very, very thankful for my guest coming back on today. And we're going to start with, first of all, I'm going to ask Emily the question, then I'm going to pass it to Jeff. First of all, Emily, how are you doing all this craziness now?
With the quarantine and stay at home?
Yes.
I'm bored, which I think, given that it's kind of apocalyptic right now, I'll take bored over, running from aliens or, robots or the Matrix or whatever. And I'm very grateful that right now I'm healthy, that pretty much everyone I know is healthy and they've been staying at home. So I miss hockey. I'm very ready for hockey to be back. Yeah. So if everybody could continue to stay at home, keep flattening that curve, and let's get back to normal.
Exactly. And Mr. Jeff Duarte, I want to ask you how you and the family are making it through this.
We're doing okay. I've been off work for about a month, but fortunately I work for a company where I still get paid even though I'm not at work. Mm. My wife doesn't have the same luxury. She was off for a while and she wasn't getting any paychecks coming in, but we've worked that out. Now things are starting to turn around and get a little better. So we're okay. We're good. And but just super bored as hell because you can only watch so much TV and so many films and so much Tiger King without going crazy.
Exactly.
Because I really, really miss hockey. I miss sports, MMA. I miss everything. So just super bored, but we're okay.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Me and my wife have been doing pretty good. Unfortunately, I'm still working and, every day I go out there, I always think about what's going on. And, like I said, it's just, I'm the type of person that if you guys know me pretty well, I like to make fun and I like to do things in a fun way. But then again, it's very serious out there and a lot of people are very scared. So it's like most of the time I try to keep people laughing to the point where they don't feel like it's a major thing that's going on, even though that it is. And believe me, I do respect the situation at hand. But, now I just want to, just go into this right quick. I want to ask you guys your thoughts. If hockey came back right now, how would you think it would look? Jeff, I want to start with you on this one.
If the NHL decides to come back and continue this current season, I truly believe that the regular season is finished. They're not going to continue on. They're not going to go up to 82 games. I think they're going to go straight into a playoff format. And from what I'm hearing, they're looking for sites where they're able to do that, including in Manchester, New Hampshire, the former home of the Manchester Monarchs, RIP, the former affiliate of the LA Kings, as well as other places like that, if it's possible, but going straight into the playoffs. Now, what kind of playoffs are we going to get? Nobody knows. If they do the regular format, but maybe cut it down to a best of 3 in the first round, a best of 5 in the second round, and so on, so they don't have to play as many games, that's an option. Another thing I'm hearing is they might go with 24 teams on there, so meaning teams even like Montreal, that was nowhere near a playoff spot, might actually get in as a bottom seed, just so they can have more teams in there and bring in more money for those clubs who have lost a lot of money because the season has been shut down. So it would definitely be interesting. But I truly believe that if they do come back, the season's finished. And the LA Kings should win the Stanley Cup, considering that we had the biggest win streak at the end of this season with a 7-game winning streak. We had the momentum, and to me, that's enough of a qualification to win the cup. But maybe I'm biased. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Oh, now, I would love to see the other team's reactions to that around the league. That would be hilarious.
Well, they hit LA already, so what's the difference, right?
Now, I want to make this point. I want to make this point to the listeners out there. We're all LA Kings fans, so you can't say anything bad about the LA Kings in this forum right here. So, matter of fact, all 3 of us are LA Kings fans, so we, this is kind of a little bit of a biased show. I'll let you know right now. Biased podcast right now. Okay, Emily, the same question for you. I want you to respond to that as well.
I think no matter what happens, it sucks for the Kings because, like Jeff said, we were on that huge win streak. We were doing really well. We still had maybe, 12 games or something left. We could have scraped into the playoffs, and it's disappointing that it was too little too late for us. But either way, I don't see this happening in a way that is fair for the players. The stay-at-home dates, they just keep getting pushed back. It was, it's going to be a couple of weeks because that's the incubation time. And, now it's going to be end of April, and now it's going to be May 12th or something. And so the more this keeps getting pushed back, the teams that actually make it to the Stanley Cup final, they're going to be playing in August, September, coming up onto training camp. And that's so much pressure to put an athlete's body through and then have to have them turn around and be like, okay, great, we're back for the start of the season. They're going to have a major disadvantage going into that, and they're just going to be exhausted. And I feel like no matter how it's done, it's just not going to be really fair for anyone, and this is always going to be the season with an asterisk by it, oh yeah, we won the Stanley Cup, but it was, that quarantine year. So as much as I hate it, I feel like the best thing to do, if this keeps going on, is just kind of not award the Stanley Cup for a season and just start again fresh in September, October.
Okay, that sounds great. Now, do you guys want to agree on this? Do you feel like this is affecting all sports? And if, let's say, the NBA started back up, would they feel like they would have to do the same thing? If Major League Baseball hasn't even started yet? So, what are your thoughts on the other sports in a way? Just let me know how do you feel about the other sports as well?
Yeah, what I'm hearing about Major League Baseball is that they're looking at the state of Arizona to get their season started. Whether that actually comes to pass or not, we'll find out soon enough. The NBA is looking at locations, too, to continue their season or go straight into the playoffs. And I think the NHL is just kind of waiting to see what they're going to do. Because if they're able to pull it off and get a baseball season started or an NBA season or playoffs started, then the NHL definitely is going to look into it. Is it the right thing to do at this point in time? Probably not, because we're still living in a very dangerous world. Some countries haven't even peaked with the COVID-19 yet, and I think Canada's one of them. even though it's still pretty bad up here, that this is a major risk. And of course, players are going to have to fly to those locations and everything. It's a big mess. But jumping on what Emily was saying, I think whatever those sports decide to do, including the NHL, everyone's going to complain because it's why are you putting the players in danger and therefore their families in danger? Why are you going straight to the playoffs? You don't finish the season, or why are you bringing in 24 teams, or why are you playing in Arizona or Manchester? All this, like, no one's going to be happy, even if they just award the Stanley Cup to the team with the most points, which I believe is the Boston Bruins, and just skip the whole playoff format just so there's someone to win the Stanley Cup. People are going to complain because it was like they were just awarded the cup and didn't have to fight for it in the playoffs.
Exactly.
So I think this is really a lose-lose situation. That really the important thing is the safety of everyone, players, their families, everything. And you know what? There's been years where the Stanley Cup has not been won, right? Recently in 2005 because of the year-long strike, and 1918 because of the Spanish influenza, where they had to halt the Stanley Cup final because some of those players got sick and passed away.
Wow.
So I really, really believe that the NHL is just waiting to see what baseball is going to do because they seem to be aggressive in trying to get their season started, and the NBA is kind of watching what MLB is doing, and the NHL is watching both. So if they do start off, then I definitely see the NHL coming back, but hopefully it's not a disaster when it comes to the safety of everyone involved.
Exactly. Now, Emily, your thoughts on that as well?
Well, a friend of mine who follows baseball much more closely than I do was saying that with the schedule for baseball being as long as it is, by the time they start, they're going to be playing baseball in December, which is fine for hockey when you play inside and you're used to fans who are used to freezing weather. You can't, like, if the Dodgers made it for the, third, fourth year in a row, you can't play, well, I guess you could in California, but you can't play baseball outside in December.
Exactly.
It's going to be a total nightmare. So I'm very glad I am not, the heads of one of these organizations just to figure out how to make this normal again.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. That was my thought. I have no idea how to make this
I
work.
just, me and, like I said, a couple weeks ago, I had on Dave May Jr., and he's a scout for the Toronto Blue Jays. And now I am a Toronto Blue Jay fan, to let you know, because of Dave May. He played in the major leagues, and his brother and his dad played as well. He gave me a little bit of insight that we might see baseball in December, but maybe in dome stadiums and maybe with no fans. It's like you said, both of you guys said, it's going to be kind of different because we're probably going to see champions crowned with no fight or no really playoff experience this year. And how crazy is that? I mean, have you ever seen, I've never seen it, I know neither one of you have ever seen it, a situation where we might have all the sports, basically, college basketball, college football, college baseball, NBA, NHL, MLB, golf, everything in towards the end of the year. And now, how crazy is that? That's crazy. All right, the next question I wanted to ask you guys. Now, with the Kings doing so great at the end of the season, do you guys think it was time for Daryl Sutter to go? Emily, I want you to answer this one first.
Yes, I do. At the time, he had lost the room. He had lost the confidence of the players. They were not responding to his style at all. And while I am completely grateful for everything Daryl Sutter did, he basically performed a miracle and got us 2 Stanley Cups in 3 years. And the middle year in between, he got us to that Western Conference final against Chicago.
Yeah.
The Kings were a solid team for those 3 years. And then the year after 2015, that's when Jonathan Quick had his groin strain. We were the first Stanley Cup team in, I think there have been four Stanley Cup teams that have not had a chance to get their title back to back. And from then on, it was unfortunate circumstances, but from then on, since we've won in 2014, the Kings have not won more than one playoff game. That's not even
Wow.
series. We've literally won one game against the San Jose Sharks once in the
Wow.
playoffs because we just keep not making it, and the one time we did, we were terrible. So yeah, I feel like that was on Sutter's head for a couple of those seasons, and it was time to make a change. And maybe the change they made with Stevens was not the best call either, clearly, and getting Desjardins in after that was not a good call either, that he was not the right coach. But yeah, I miss Sutter. I miss what he did. I miss his kid. I miss Chris dancing on the dance cam. But I have to say, it was time, and maybe even a season too late to say goodbye to him.
All right, Jeff, your turn. What do you think?
Yeah, of course, Daryl Sutter is the greatest coach in LA Kings history.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody will argue with that. Daryl Sutter was the right coach at the right time to motivate the players. So this is what I always like to say about the 2012 Stanley Cup win by the Kings, is the previous coach was Terry Murray. Terry Murray taught the Kings how to play defense. The Kings were already excellent defensively by the time Daryl Sutter came in. But what Daryl Sutter brought was he taught them how to compete. He taught them how, they pretty much were a unit, 5 guys up and then 5 guys back. And your shifts are 40 seconds of hell, and that's what he liked to call it. And as, a best-of-7 playoff format, the Crash and Bank style Sutter brought to the team, how many teams did the Kings crush by the time he got later on in the series, especially in 2014?
Yeah.
But Daryl Sutter also has a pattern of, because he's such an old school and very, very stubborn type of coach, it's his way or the highway, whether he's right or wrong. Coaches like him have about a 5-year shelf life in the NHL. And if you look at Daryl Sutter's past as a head coach, he was only the head coach of Chicago for 3 years. He was the coach of San Jose for 5.5. Dean Lombardi was his GM at the time. Calgary, he only coached for 3 years because then he became the GM, which he was terrible at, and got fired there. And then with LA, about 5.5 seasons as well. But by the time, after 2014, everything went downhill for the Kings with Sutter and Lombardi. And Emily is 100% right. The players were tuning him out. Dustin Brown looked like he was ready to retire. It's like he didn't even know how to play hockey anymore. And as soon as Sutter was gone, he had a renaissance and a comeback in his career, doing better than some of the young guys like Tyler Toffoli, who was in his prime. So there was definitely something there with Sutter that was rubbing people the wrong way. And I always loved Daryl Sutter because, he did what other coaches couldn't do, including Tom Webster, who recently passed away, by the way. Wow. So rest in peace to former LA Kings coach Tom Webster. But Daryl Sutter got us to the dance, and we won it twice and went to the conference final in between. But by the time he got fired, it was time to go. And I also miss Chris Sutter and his dancing, and because he was just so much fun and such positive energy. We needed that.
Exactly.
But it was time for Sutter to go. And John Stevens was more of a comfort hire because he had been the assistant coach. The players were familiar with him. He did have head coaching experience with Philadelphia. Meaning, Jeff Carter has a long history with him and things like that. But John Stevens is not a head coach kind of guy. And Willie Desjardins was a complete disaster. So it was time for Sutter to go, unfortunately, but it was the right move to do because nobody was listening to him. And once you take the C off Dustin Brown, who had been a loyal soldier and warrior and leader for 8 years at that point, and watching how, Dustin Brown came back the years after when Sutter was gone, obviously that was a horrible move by Sutter and Lombardi. So it was time for him to go.
Okay.
I still have huge issues with that. I'm a big Dustin Brown fan.
Oh, me too. I still get angry just thinking about it.
Oh, yeah. He's still my captain. Dustin Brown will always be my captain. He's the first one to raise the Stanley Cup. So far, he's the only one to raise the Stanley Cup. And I think he's still a leader in the room. I think people still follow him.
All right.
I agree.
Do you think Kopitar is still a good leader as well?
He's a different type of leader. Because here's an argument or debate I get all the time with my work colleagues and friends and everything. And I remember, I won't mention any names, but his name's Jay. He's probably walked this before. So, hey, Jay, what's up, buddy? Loser, Detroit fan. Anyways, huge Detroit Red Wings fan, and we're talking about captains, right? And he's like, man, LA's captain, which was Dustin Brown at the time, man, you have, one of the worst captains ever. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He lifted the cup twice as captain. Something Wayne Gretzky, Rob Blake, Dave Taylor, that former captains of the LA Kings could not do. Dustin Brown did it twice and was a Conn Smythe contender in that 2012 Cup win. What are you talking about? Oh, but he barely scores goals. I'm like, well, who's your captain? Well, our captain is, I don't even remember what he said at the time. I think it was still, I think it was Dad's secret. I could be wrong. I don't remember now. Yeah. But I'm like, well, does he get the most points in your team? He's like, no. Then I'm like, it doesn't go by points. There's different ways of providing leadership.
Exactly.
Dustin Brown was his work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
Dustin Brown's not a cheerleader. He's not a rah-rah kind of guy. He's a very quiet, kind of introverted guy. But people do go to him for advice, but he's not a guy to stand in front of the room and make a speech like a Steve Yzerman would or a Wayne Gretzky would, or someone like Mark Messier, where if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, we'll grab you by the throat and choke slam you into the wall and say, hey, when you wear these colors, you're a part of this team. No individual BS, right?
Exactly.
Dustin Brown was his work ethic. When he went out there, especially in his prime, I mean, he would be the leader or top 3 in leader in hits overall in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, he can score 30 goals, he can score 20 goals, he can do power play, he knows how to play defensively. That's why he was the coach. Andre Kopitar is definitely one of our most talented players, but Kobe is also a very quiet guy, but different than Dustin Brown. I mean, Kobe says all the right things, and I love Andre Kopitar. I'm not trying to knock him, and I always assumed Kobe would become captain after Dustin Brown's reign ended if he left the LA Kings. Trade, retirement, picked up in some expansion draft, then you pass on to C. I didn't think they would just strip him of it. But I don't think the players follow Kobe. They follow Kobe to a degree because Kobe is such an extremely talented player and such a nice guy. But I don't think they follow him for the leadership part of it. Mm-hmm. I still think they go to Dustin Brown. They go to guys like Jeff Carter or Trevor Lewis. Even Alec Martinez in the last couple of years took on a leadership role, and Drew Doughty, for better or worse, is taking on a leadership role.
That's been fun, hasn't it?
He's not afraid to express his opinion. That's where the young guys are going to, and more or less Andre Kopitar. Kopitar pretty much just became captain because that's who Daryl Sutter wanted, and Kopitar's the guy who gets the most points on the team. I guess that's what Sutter preferred, which I still think was a bad move. No offense to Kobe, love him, hope he retires as a king. But Dustin Brown was more of the guy that you follow. He's the guy you want to be in that foxhole with in a war. It's Dustin Brown. Because he'll give his heart and soul and sleep and blood for the Kings, which is why he's such a warrior for the team and didn't deserve what happened to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Joe Thornton.
Yeah. All right. What do you say, Emily? I think that's a pretty good, valid point. But Dustin Brown or Andre Kopitar is your captain?
Oh, Dustin Brown, all the way. I'm not sure how accurate this is, but given that there was some hemming and hawing on Andre Kopitar's contract, and then immediately after he signed it, we stripped Dustin Brown of the captaincy. I'm just a little weary of how it happened. I think it was so disrespectful to Dustin Brown that he heard about it. I believe what happened is a reporter leaked it on Twitter. His wife heard about it, and his wife called him and said, hey, what happened? And he's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think the way he was treated and the way that was handled was terribly done.
Yeah.
And I have a huge amount of respect for him. And, he's a good family man. He is still a leader in that room. And whether or not the pressure of the captaincy or whether it was Daryl Sutter, he has certainly performed much better since he wasn't captain. But I just feel like, maybe I think it's more a Sutter thing, and he could have been a resurgence, and he still is a leader in that room from what I understand. So I say kudos to Dustin Brown. He handled it like a champ. I was on the call with his press conference after it was stripped from him, and he was very frank about it. He didn't give the standard team answer that you can tell they've gone through the publicity engine and it's just all the same sports quotes. He was very frank about it, and I really respected that from him too. So the fact that he's continued to play for this team that he loves and still Hunt came out and did so strong. He was on the line with Iafallo and Brown right after he was stripped, and he played some of the best hockey of his life. So, kudos for him for still playing the way he does.
Mm-hmm. All right. That's cool. Now, a couple other things I wanted to ask you guys was, now there's going to be a new team in Seattle. What is
whatever?
Yeah,
see, they don't have a name yet.
I thought I've seen a name or something. I don't know what it was. Who do you think is going to be leaving the Kings going to that Seattle team? If anybody, if they had the expansion draft, who do you think we're probably going to lose?
My unpopular opinion is that it might be Jonathan Quick. I think at the very least he's going to be unprotected in the draft because we are going to keep. We just lost Campbell. Who do we have now? Peterson?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Peterson. There we go. So my guess is he'll be up on the block. Given the state of our team right now and how many draft picks we have and how much has changed in our team this season, I think it's hard to say until we know how next season plays out, who we actually have on the team.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain people that we can't trade. There are certain non-move and non-compete clauses. Kopitar, I believe, is one of them. I want to say Drew Doughty, or maybe that's just me thinking that the Kings are never going to move.
You think Doughty might be gone?
Yeah, I think there's
no movement clause in his contract.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think there are certain people that they'll definitely want to keep. But yeah, it's really hard for me to say who I think they'll take. Last time I was really happy when we gave up McNabb. I was totally fine with that. So if it goes along the same way, I know we just signed the guy who I consider to be his replacement, and why am I totally blanking on his name? McDermott. I hope we don't lose him. I really like him as a player. Obviously, I wouldn't like to lose Dustin Brown. I'd like to keep Trevor Lewis and Kyle Clifford as long as we can. Yeah, we'll see. I think it also is going to have a lot to do with who else is up on the block that year. Like what other teams are putting forward and what they're looking for. But we have a lot of draft picks coming up, so it's going to be, I think, a lot based on what the dynamic of the team looks like next year.
Okay. Now, Jeff, do you think he's going to be gone?
Yeah, see, this upcoming expansion draft, which is supposed to be next year, with Seattle, blah, 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 whatever they're going to be called, who cares? The Seattle Starbucks or whatever. It's going to be interesting because the last expansion draft with Vegas was unprecedented because it was heavily courteous to Vegas. Like normally when they have these expansion drafts back in the day when Ottawa and Tampa Bay and Florida came in, they just got the scraps. The NHL teams were allowed to keep and protect more players that wouldn't be available to be drafted in the expansion draft. And which is why Tampa Bay and Ottawa, they were horrible when they started because they didn't really have much. They just had whatever scraps they could get from the expansion draft, whatever they could pick up from free agency, and whoever they could draft. Vegas, because it was Gary Bettman's baby project, and he's been dying to get a team in Vegas forever, really tilted in the favor of Vegas, where the NHL teams can barely save any of their best players. I don't remember what it was now. It was like 8 skaters and a goalie or whatever it was. I have a feeling it's going to be the same again because Seattle is a city that Bettman has wanted to have a team for a long, long time. For example, Quebec City recently built, and of course Quebec used to have a team called Quebec Nordiques in the NHL. They built a state-of-the-art arena suitable for the NHL, and Bettman won't even look at them because that's not a market he cares about. He wants Seattle. So Seattle had to build an arena because they didn't have one that could suit hockey.
Yeah.
So anyways, it looks like they're getting special favors from Bettman and his and the NHL as well. So I think the Kings might be in a bit of trouble, just like they were before. I think we lost Brady McNabb. I was fine with that.
Yeah.
But in this one, Jonathan Quick definitely is a goalie they could be interested in. The only thing is, Jonathan Quick right now is 34 years old and not as, pardon the pun, quick as he used to be. But as we saw with the 7-game win streak, when he gets red hot, he's almost unstoppable.
Exactly.
So, and he has the experience. He has leadership experience. That's another leader on the team. And I think Jonathan Quick plays better when he's angry. I think he'll be angry if he has to move to Seattle. So he'll probably play some really good hockey. But that's one guy that definitely will be available. Doughty's not going anywhere. Kopitar's not going anywhere. Dustin Brown might be available, but he'll be 36, 37 by then.
Yeah.
Jeff Carter might not be protected because of his age, but there's been rumors that if Carter leaves LA, he'll just retire anyways because he doesn't want to leave. And it's sad to say he's pretty close to retirement anyways. That last injury from, was it 2 seasons ago, really took away a lot of his foot speed and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think if we lose anyone, it'll be more of the younger guys. I mean, Toffoli, Pearson, Martinez, they're already all gone. So I think they'll be looking at someone, maybe a Curtis McDermott, because he's a crash and bang type of player, and to sell hockey in Seattle, he'd be the type of player the fans can get behind with because of his big hits and stuff like that. Maybe even an Austin Wagner, who has a lot of speed, and really, I haven't been very impressed with, so I wouldn't be, too sad if he went over to Seattle. But I think they're going to go more for the younger guys, as long as they don't touch a Gabe Velarde, a Jared Anderson-Dolan, or Mikey Esimon or Mikey Anderson. I think, it's Jonathan Quick, might be gone. They'll look at Trevor Lewis if the Kings re-sign him this year because he's a free agent, and they've been looking more for younger guys. But unfortunately, the Kings, just like all the other teams, are going to be powerless in how many players they can protect, because I just got a really bad gut feeling that this expansion is going to be like the Vegas one, tilted in Vegas's favor, and really, really hurtful to teams like LA, who's going to struggle to keep some of their, prospects in this draft.
Okay. Now, quick question. Yes or no? Do you think that this Seattle team, when they come out of the expansion draft, will be in the Stanley Cup Finals just like Vegas was in their first season?
No.
No. Okay.
That was a total fluke. There were so many factors that led to, like Jeff said, the expansion was definitely tilted towards their favor, and there were a lot of things that Vegas got away with because they needed the expansion to go well. Okay. There were other franchises, I believe football, a couple other things are wanting to get a hold in Vegas as well in the next few seasons, and hockey needed to prove that we can build a team there, and since there's so many transit people coming in and out of Vegas, they needed to build a fan base, and the best way to do that is make their team really, really good.
Yeah. Now you can see that the Raiders just moved there too, so that they're gonna have a lot of fans as well. So like you said, transitional fans. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Partly due to the success of the Golden Knights doing so well, so exactly. I feel like they don't need that after Vegas, and so I feel like it's not going to be quite so heavily tipped towards Seattle. And what are the chances that like a Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be available to them?
Exactly.
Thanks, Pittsburgh. I get it. Matt Murray's really good, but seriously, you had to give the Marc-Andre freaking Fleury? Come on.
Exactly.
Chances that is going to happen again are pretty slim.
What do you think, Jeff? No?
I think that if the draft isn't as tilted as it was for Vegas, I don't see them going all the way. But if it is, I still don't see them go all the way because, fool me once type thing. A lot of teams didn't take Vegas seriously, even though they had a very talented roster, because they were the expansion team. And history has showed us that normally expansion teams are horrible in their first couple of years in the league. With Vegas, they caught everybody by surprise at how good they were, and by then it was too late, and they marched all the way to the Stanley Cup final. I think with Seattle, that if they do have a favored expansion draft and do have a strong competitive team, no one is going to take them lightly because they don't want to happen what happened with Vegas in their first year. I mean, if you remember when Florida came in, Florida was garbage for the first 2 years, and they made the Stanley Cup final. Being a very heavily defensive, dead puck type team, they made the Stanley Cup final in '96. They lost in 4, but they made it. But they did it through hard work and a couple of trades. Vegas was pretty much handed a great team and then went all the way. Teams took them lightly. It will not happen again. Everyone will play hard against Seattle if they do end up building a very strong team through the draft and free agency. So I'll say no.
Okay. All right. Well, last question I got for you guys. I'm going to have to wrap it up in a few minutes. But I wanted to ask you guys, if hockey did return right now, who would you think would be the favorite to win the Stanley Cup? If it, let's say, like, if we didn't go through this situation right now, who would you think will win the Stanley Cup right now? Emily, go ahead. I want you to take this one. Take the lead on this.
That's always tough for me. I can never tell who's going to do well in the postseason because the regular season so rarely has an impact on it. I like Boston for it. They've had a really good record in the last few games. My kind of come out of nowhere pick was Philadelphia. They're 9-1-0 in their last 10 games. So they were on fire. So I feel like maybe a Philadelphia-Boston Eastern Conference final could be a possibility. I'm a little biased because my brother grew up playing for a coach who came from Colorado, so he's always been an Avalanche fan. But they're 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. So now that everybody's healthy, they had a lot of injuries in the last couple of weeks that they actually played. I would really like to see what that team did going into a Stanley Cup final. They're really on the upswing of their rebuild. They're really kind of hitting that peak, and so I feel like this could have been their year. But it's hard to say if it was played now because everybody's had such a long break and everybody's gotten healthy again, and all the momentum that teams have had, including the Kings, it doesn't mean anything anymore. So, whether start playoffs now or whether they play the rest of the regular season and then go ahead, it's anyone's guess who would actually win. If we saw a Stanley Cup final this year, I'm not sure. But I would like to see Colorado.
Okay. Colorado is your pick. Jeff, what is your pick?
Yeah, my original pick at the beginning of the season was Tampa Bay. I'm a romantic at heart, and I love reading Stanley Cup history about teams that were predicted to win but collapse in the playoffs, but learn from that experience and then win the cup the next year. Such as like the Edmonton Oilers in the 80s with Wayne Gretzky and them. They were projected to win the Stanley Cup in 82, and they ended up getting beaten by our Los Angeles Kings, the Miracle of Manchester.
Yeah,
they learned from that and went to the Stanley Cup final in 83, but lost to the Islanders just straight. But they learned from that, and then they won 5 cups out of 7 years. Detroit were the favorites in 96, bombed out in the playoffs in a war with Colorado, a war that lasted many years. It's one of the most exciting, brutal hockey I've ever seen. But then Detroit came back, learned from that, and won 2 straight Stanley Cups. So I was wondering, Tampa Bay were so great last year. They were most people's pick to win the Stanley Cup. They had the most points, won the President's Trophy, and then historically bombed out in the playoffs, losing 4 straight to the ace seed Columbus Blue Jackets. I think this year was their revenge year, and they had a good chance of going to the end. But that's the romantic in me. Boston has a great chance. They've been nipping at the cup since they won it in 2011. They were in the final last year, in the final 2013. They're still super strong. Emily's right. Colorado's had a fantastic year. Just have some injury, issues, but everyone hopefully is healthy right now. They have a great chance. And I wouldn't count out Washington, the Washington Capitals. Like last year, I feel Washington had the biggest hangover from a Stanley Cup winning team ever, even worse than the Kings in 2015. Washington looked like they were zombies last year, but they came back with a vengeance this year, and the St. Louis Blues are still playing. At least they were before the shutdown. Fantastic hockey, and they're the champs too. They've tasted. When you taste from the cup, all you want to do is do it again. It becomes an addiction. And St. Louis still has a super strong team. So any of those, but I'm still going to go with Tampa Bay. Call me romantic, but it would be like a revenge thing. And if you look at Stanley Cup history, because I love hockey, reading about hockey history, that happens a lot. It happens a lot. Montreal happened with, like I said, Detroit and everything. So I think it'd be cool if Tampa Bay won the cup, and a little knock to Steve Yzerman for building that team and then leaving to go back to Detroit, and they go on to win the Stanley Cup without him. And I just find that funny, because then I can yell at my friend Jay, who's watching this. Hey Jay, Detroit fan, you loser. It would be fantastic to rub that in his face. But I'll go with Tampa Bay, but any of those other teams that were mentioned, they have a fantastic shot as well.
Okay.
And hey, wild card team. If they go with the 2014 format, what the heck? Let's go Montreal Canadiens. Again, romantic at heart. They have the most Stanley Cups. It would be great, and then I can rub it into Leaf fans. So that's, in their faces. So that would be fun.
Oh, I can't mention Montreal
I mean, if
because
we're going wild card, I'm picking Arizona.
Arizona. There you go. That's a good
We're
one.
going like way wild card. Arizona's my wild card pick.
Yeah. I believe me, guys. I can't go with Montreal because they killed me in '93. We all know what happened in '93. So I've hated Montreal for the longest. I mean, even though they have the most cups, they even crushed. Actually, I was a bit of a Philadelphia Flyer fan. Now I know people around here in Philadelphia are gonna ask me what happened because when they listen to this podcast, they're gonna say, "Hey, you're a traitor." But the thing about it is that when it's been 45 years since Philadelphia's won the cup, and believe me, Montreal with that Robinson and Guy Lafleur and all those guys, they just killed Philadelphia. They had no chance. But I'm gonna end it with St. Louis. I still think that St. Louis still has the momentum, and even if they were, cut off by this season, they're still the champs. You can't rule them out. They're still the champs. So
right.
Well, guys, I really enjoyed this. This has been a very, very good education on hockey. And believe me, like I said, this is a sports show to where I talk everything. Now, like I said, this format has been expanded by a half hour. Now I got 45 minutes to talk instead of 30. But I just want to, end it with you guys throwing out your socials if you got them. And like I said, really, really appreciate the conversation. Remember one thing, I don't hold interviews. This is no interview. These are conversations. And the conversation I got from you, Emily, and from you, Jeff, is very, very valuable. And believe me, I really appreciate you guys taking the time for the second take of this, and basically doing this again. All right, you guys give out your socials right quick because I'm running out a little bit of a time now. So go ahead. Ladies first. Let's go with Emily.
Okay.
Go ahead, Em.
Well, I guess I have to do this last part in my Australian accent because my Twitter handle is Aussie Emily, AussieEmily. You can follow me there for all things hockey, though there's not a whole lot of hockey to be talking about right now.
All right. And I do follow you.
I have to say, it gets me every time.
I do follow you, Emily. You're great on it.
You.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Just one quick mention that when Emily was a guest on King's Road Talk, when I was the co-host there, she once did an entire episode in her natural Australian accent. And to this day, that's my favorite episode of all time. I just thought that was just so awesome. It was so much fun. But no, you can find me on Twitter at JD Styles with a Z _ JD STYLZ _. I'm also on Instagram. You can find all of our works, all three of us, at CaliSportsNews.com. Though currently there's no new content, the apocalypse and everything. And I'm on Twitter on my real name, Jeff Duarte, Duarte, and you can contact me there. Let's talk some hockey. Go Kings, go.
Exactly.
Yes.
Guys, I really appreciate it, and I'm out of time, but I just wanted to let you guys know that anything that you guys need from me, you're always welcome to be on the Guru Talking Sports. And like I said, everyone, be out there, be safe, and tune in the next time. I'll have more content and great conversations like I have right now. Thank you guys both. Emily Redenbach, thank you. And Mr. Jeff Duarte, thank you as well.
Thank you, Mac. It was fun.
You're
I'll
great.
Be here anytime.
Great.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
You're welcome. The Guru will see you real soon. You guys take care and be safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Later.
Okay, you too. Happy Easter, everyone.
It's Happy Easter.
Yeah, happy Easter.
All right. Thank you. All right, guys. Later.